Welcome to Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis. Today, Coach Rob brought an interesting subject to me about strings, because we get asked so much and so often about strings. I was thinking about calling it Idiot's Guide to Tennis Strings.
No, let's not do that.
Stay tuned. Oh, hey guys. Direct Tennis 2.0 mobile app is out now. Download it today. As you know, Direct Tennis is the first place to connect stringers with tennis players in your neighborhood. With the 2.0 mobile app, they now have a tennis shop. You can buy tennis gear on the app now. And through the app only, get 10% off with discount code TennisSpin, and you will get 10% off your entire order. Download the Direct Tennis 2.0 mobile app today. All right, coffee sponsor of today is Jeremy Yang. Jeremy writes, "Greetings, my son plays tennis. In my area, my son, he says, school tournaments do not allow rackets to be modified by adding lead." And he writes, "Huh?" with 3 question marks. Jeremy, I have never heard of this before.
I've never heard of that either.
Like, I would probably ask why. And, I mean, unless he's under, I mean, even if you're under 8 or 10 or something like that, I would not understand why they wouldn't want you to do lead. I mean, unless they think that lead is toxic and then you shouldn't be touching it or putting it in your racket. That's the only thing I can think of.
Right. Are they weighing them? Because you can obviously put lead under your grips. You could put it under the bumper guard. I mean, are they weighing it to make sure that it meets the specs? Or are they just looking for the visible signs of the lead tape around the head?
Right.
But
or you don't
that's
even
never heard
have
of
to
that.
use lead. There's other materials out there that you can weigh it down with, so you can hide it if you want to. But that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. But yeah, I've never heard of that before. Guys, have you? Maybe we can all help Jeremy a little bit here. Yeah. Jeremy, thank you for the coffee. I've never heard of that before, neither has Coach Rob. I would say 99% of the people or more have not heard of that rule before. But Jeremy, thank you for the coffee. Hopefully our contingent of viewers can help with this one a little bit more. Okay? Guys, if you want to be my coffee sponsor of the day, network is buymeacoffee.com/tennis spin. If you want to just hook up the channel, super thanks is the way. Link is below. Thank you, guys. Coach Rob actually doesn't drink caffeine or coffee, so I wish I was on that boat. But
moving on.
I got to wake up. So you brought up this subject a couple weeks ago about, you get hit a lot with, educate me about strings. What kind of string should I use? What's the difference between this and this? Well, there's literally thousands of strings on the market. You can try a new string for probably 3 to 5 years and never be done. Coach Rob wanted to do like a beginner's guide or educational
Just
guide?
kind of like an educational guide and talk about, okay, hey, we grew up, it was like nylon, synthetic gut, or gut, right? So we had our, I remember the VS gut,
Right.
Still the tried and true. I always loved the VS on the stencil, thought that was super cool with the lines. Or, just a simple sin gut, that was out there.
And we don't have cheap nylon.
Yeah, we don't have any, sorry. We don't have any nylon. Neither of us had any nylon.
So that's the $2 stuff. I think it's still $2. It came in like a 15 light and then a 16 gauge.
What's
Prince
that? Can you
made
explain
it.
gauge to me?
Oh,
Because I get that question a lot as well.
really?
Right, like, okay, gauge. Should I go 16 gauge? What's standard? Oh, so if I say I'm going to go smaller, a thinner string, 17 gauge, people are like, wait, no, 17 is bigger than 16. So the numbers throw people off until they kind of understand it.
Right.
And then there's 18, 19, 20.
Okay.
And you know, a little bit of it is you get questions like, hey, I'm a string breaker. Okay, let's go in this realm of string. I never break string.
Right.
Let's do a thinner string that feels better. So there's a lot out there.
Yes. So let's start with, we'll start with gauges. Let's educate people about gauges. The higher the number, the thinner it is. So anybody who's an electrician or some kind of an engineer that works with wires and various, strands of metal for bracing would know this. As you go up in number, the thinner it gets. So I mean, like, let's say you mentioned 17, and we have 17 right here. 17 gauge, 1.20 on this one. So let's grab that 16 gauge we have there, 1.30 on that one.
And you'll see it down here in the corners, usually where they're putting the number.
And that means the circumference around the string in millimeters. So it's 1.30, 1.20. Now there's also a little bit of confusion on like gauges too, because 17 gauge can also be 1.25. Grab that one.
16L.
So Solinco breaks it down a little bit where you have 120, 125. They consider this 17 and this 16L. Some companies don't go with the L and they just say this is 17. So there is a slight variance. So a 0.5 millimeter or 0.05 variance in the gauges. So 120, 125 can both be considered 17 gauge. They just broke it down a little bit more, but it depends on the company, right? I'll show you an example. Here is Babolat saying 125, 17, okay? So look at the millimeters if you really, really care about how thick or thin you want to go. So you asked me what the standards are in strings. 16 and 17 are the most popular. 16 is probably more popular and what most people use because, excuse me, it's a little thicker. Most people don't really want their strings to break so fast. And usually when you do that, you go with, like a multi, things like these that basically will hold tension and not break as fast if you are using like a nylon-based multi-filament, okay? Now, before I jump into this a lot more, let me talk, since we're on gauges though, we can go as thick. I mean, I don't have one, but grab that 16 and grab this 20. So 20 gauge is as thin as I've ever seen. It is, how many millimeters, Coach?
It is the 1.05.
Whoa, yes.
Which I didn't even know they made 20 gauge until you told me about it
a
few months ago.
So we've tested it out. It plays incredible. It
For
will
a short period of time.
not last, though. I mean, it lasted, like Coach Chris, like 2 hours or less. It lasted you like about five or six. Yep.
Yeah.
And you're a flat hitter.
Thank you.
So it plays well, easy spin, good spin, but won't last. Now, 16 gauge is not the thickest they make, but there's a 15 light that's 1.35. That's the thickest they make for us, like that they sell on the market. I believe there actually is a 1.40 that they do not sell to us. That is like a pro level string for like a Nadal. But yeah, this is what we're working with, okay? The thickest is the 1.35 that we don't have. The thinnest is a 20 gauge, okay? So durability, playability, more spin, the thinner you get, okay? Now, why is it that the thinner it is, the more spin we get?
I would go with the string can move more, depending on the string pattern of the racket, but it's going to be able to move more. You're going to create more RPMs.
Right.
It's going to roll.
Exactly. Because it's so thin, right? It's actually more space in between each other. When the ball actually impacts that string, it's actually, even if you hit it flat, it's going to like shift. It's going to shift and then impart something on the ball, some kind of spin, whether it's top or underspin on it, because it's so easy to move. Like literally, I will see people who have no business of breaking strings break that 20 gauge just because it's so easy to snap. Okay, now I wanted to go back to when you and I were growing up. I mean, we had a choice of 3 strings, you know, gut being the best, like multi-sin gut being these, and then just straight nylon being another. When it's straight nylon, it's just that core being that gauge. In the multi, like this one, like a multi-sin gut, it's the core with 1 wrap around it. Well, what does that wrap do? What does that wrap do?
It's trying to give you a little protection. It's trying to keep it from breaking, gives you another little bit of coating to help with the abrasion.
It helps us to string the racket too, by helping it slide. And it gives it a little bit more playability. So it's got microfilaments wrapping the monofilament, which is that core right there. Now, when you go in a gut, though, I mean, there's no picture of it, but imagine, let me show you guys this picture. Oh yeah, perfect. Imagine all these little microfilaments, even thinner than this picture, being in here. And that, again, that, guys, is a cow gut, cow intestine, natural fiber, okay? So instead of eating it, they made it into string. Yes, it's a natural fiber. Comes out of an animal. Not a cat. Not a cat, okay? No meow, 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 because that's violin string. No, just kidding. It ain't. So all the little strands are woven together from a cow, all right, thinned out, and it takes a good amount of time. That's why it's expensive. And that's how you get gut, and it's natural gut, okay? Now let's dispel something. When people say synthetic gut, right? People only hear the word gut, okay? When you put the word synthetic on there, what exactly does that mean, Coach?
I would go with that it is more of a, made, it's not a natural, like the gut, it's not natural.
Right,
so
it's man-made. Right. Okay, and we cannot cause or recreate the same effects of a natural fiber, the same stretch, the same power, the same feel. You cannot yet, and they haven't in the last X amount of years, made anything feel like a natural fiber. They've tried, and I've tried it, and I'm like, nope, that ain't working. So we've tried a lot of strings that companies have claimed can play like natural gut, and they are not there yet. Okay? So nothing plays better than gut, in our opinion. Okay? Agreed?
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about synthetic guts. Let's talk about multis. Why do some strings shred, and why do some strings not shred? That SGX synthetic gut, this will not shred.
Correct.
This will not shred because it's got one wrap around it and a core, and it's not made to shred because it doesn't have a lot of microfilaments. The filaments are actually on the larger scale. I say medium size. Therefore, when they do kind of knock off, you don't see the little strands. Now, strings like, NXT, like a live wire.
Here's the picture of the NXT Power on on the back. It's a little bit more blown up. Mm-hmm. You can see what it is. On the front, they have it as well.
Mm-hmm. And the NRG. Right. And then the professional spin. All of these have microfibers, so very, very thin strings that's woven together. Now, when you knock off those micro strands is when you see fraying, and that's when people start worrying that it's going to break. Do you worry? Do your people say, oh my gosh, when they see a couple of these strings fray, like, Coach Rob, is my string going to break?
Most of the ones that use it, we've educated, or I have, to say, hey, it's not going to break today. It's just starting. Mm-hmm. The way you're hitting the ball, they're starting to separate. So keep an eye on it, but it's usually not, like the first sign of it doesn't mean it's going to go tomorrow.
Right. So this is how the manufacturers soften up the strings, make it more playable, make it more lively, make it more springy. This is how, like Gamma, for instance, in Technofiber, is making it more like gut. Because since gut is made this way, they're using man-made fibers to try to recreate the softness of a natural gut. Therefore, you see the fraying like gut. Okay? Any more questions?
The nice thing about that, about the multifill, when it frays, you can see where you're hitting the ball.
Yes.
So if you're hitting it in the sweet spot, good for you. If you're hitting it too close to you, it's going to wear out and you're going to have it down near the throat.
Right.
So, that is one way. It is a nice a nice way to check your spacing.
That's true. And that's actually another video. Now, in the last 20 years, we've kind of gotten away from multis and monofilament in the nylon-based stuff. We're still using gut a good amount, though. But we're using more polyesters now. Copoly, poly. Either way, it's made out of polyester. It's a polyester-based string. We just talked about the gauges. They can make those polys in that gauge because it's literally beads that are extruded like pasta and melted down and just shot out into however thick or thin we want it to, or they want it to make it. That's why we can have a 20 gauge. Now, I don't want to say it all started with this string, but I think it all started with Luxilon. And this is still the number one, the most popular polyester string on the market. Fun fact, Luxilon is actually a suture maker. If you've ever gotten stitches in your life, Luxilon probably made it.
Huh.
So
I did not know that.
Yeah. And if you ever got stitched up for a cut or something like that, Luxlon is one of the top brands of making medical sutures. And they decided to make polyester tennis strings. I mean, I want to say it's like 30 something, 40, 50 years ago. And that's how they became, I mean, they had the machines already. So they started making tennis strings for, people like pros. Because I started seeing these strings about 25-ish, maybe 30 years ago. Actually 30 years ago. And I'm like, when I first started stringing with this stuff, I'm like, what the heck is this? Who's playing with this? This is literally wire.
Right. And we were stringing it really tight as when we were stringing. That's to be determined. That'll be continued on tension later. But yeah.
So, but yeah, fun fact. And ALU, right? What do you think ALU stands for?
Don't know.
Aluminum.
Okay.
So there's actually metals in there. That's okay. That's okay. Most people just say alu and they don't know what alu means. And it's aluminum that's actually in the blend of string. A lot of strings actually have some type of a metal in there that's blended in the string. That's what causes the slight firmness of the string.
Is the metal in there.
But it also causes the slight lack of elasticity.
Right.
Yeah, that's why when you string, it doesn't go anywhere, because it's not elastic. It's not nylon.
Right.
So, a lot of things have evolved in strings where we got square.
Right.
We have now round in the same strings. We have 8-sidedness, right? Which is RPM also. We have, what else do we have? Yeah, so shapes and textures of polys specifically cause more spin. So if you've seen anybody that says, 5-sided sharp, 4-sided square, 8-sided, 6-sided, all those sided means that it's going to impart more spin easily. Now, I've told you guys before, if you weren't listening, when strings touch each other like that, okay? Like, touch each other like that, okay? It hits it and it's flat. But if you sharpen them, you basically go like this. So you turn it over to the edges and it slides easier. It moves more, right? Even when you roughen up a string, that is the same thing. When you texture it, if you've ever strung like an ALU rough or anything that's roughened, right?
Sounds great.
It sounds great, but after you get past that first cross or second, third cross, it actually slides pretty fast, surprisingly, because it's like the friction is less when it's on top of each other. That's how we're causing more spin on the ball. Round, when something is round like that, right? It's more of an all-court thing. It's less spin, actually. It's more for the people who hit through the ball. If you hit a little flatter, or if you have a continental grip, a round might be good for you. It might be good for you. Unless you want more spin, then you would go with a textured or a shaped string. Now, on the market now, everybody's trying to, do something better, hold tension better, make it play better, longer, and off the bat, no break-in period. So something like these guys, like the Tor line and the grapple snakes, right? They're trying to do that. So off the bat, as soon as you string it, you're good. There is no 30-minute or 1 hour or 15-minute break-in time. Like this M8, if you like a firmer string, it's going to be a firmer string. And it's going to hold that way for a good amount of time. Wasabi is on the slightly softer side, but again, not much of a break-in time. Like you literally will play and it's good for a good amount of time. The latest trend though is putting two strings together. I mean, we know of this as a hybrid, and normally a hybrid would be, let's say, these two, right? You would take ALU on the main and then take gut on the cross. Why would somebody do that? Why would they take a hard string and then soften it up?
So a lot of times when people were doing it, they were always breaking the mains, right? From the way they're rubbing the ball with the topspin. So they want durability and then they want feel. So they want the playability and the soft. So they're trying to find a balance between
longevity and
they
playability.
want it to, they're trying to find something that's going to last and feel good.
Right.
Versus lasting but not feeling as good, or feeling great but not lasting quite as long.
Right. And by doing,
or getting as much spin.
Yes. That's another thing. Like by doing this also, you get the spin from this and the feel from this. I want to say it's like the best of both worlds. Right? And this kind of quiets this down a little bit too, until it starts losing too much tension. Now, Fed decided to say, we want to do this.
Right.
What happened when we do this? What happened when we put this on the main?
He was getting the feel on the main and then trying to get the spin with the ALU on the cross.
Right. Now, that plays super good. Like probably one of the best blends you can do. But what are the disadvantages of that?
I'm going to say this is going to go. If you are breaking the mains, you are going to break the gut sooner than later.
Right. Now, but Fed strings all of his rackets the night before.
Used to.
Well, yeah, used to. Sorry, Fed. I wish he still played.
Me too.
And he does it every night. So all
as most
9
players,
rackets,
like all of them, not just our retired Fed, but
right. So for Fed, he gets a fresh feel of this every day. For us, we're probably keeping it on for a good amount of time because just economically, it just makes sense.
We don't have our stringer traveling with us.
Right. So, but that is one of the best feels out there. You know, when you put this on the main, when you put the natural on the main, you can't replicate this, okay? You can't replicate this feel. So if you haven't tried it before, try this kind of a blend. Now, what happens when you take, let's say, one of my favorites, you take Confidential, and then you take like Velocity together. What happens when you do this?
You're trying to somewhat compare you're trying to find that feel out of those combinations of string.
Yeah, so this is more weatherproof for sure, and you're getting the snap from the poly, you're getting the quietness and the crispness of the Velocity. So this is going to give you that harsh feel, but more spin. This will quiet this down because it's woven through. I usually, depending on if you're a string breaker or not, I recommend 17 on this to 120, and then the 16 on this 130 if you're just like a normal, let's say 3.5 to 4.0. If you're a string breaker, I'm thickening this up to 16L and keeping this at 16. Let's talk about tension though.
Right, shifted to tension because that's a big one.
Yep. So if I'm doing a hybrid with these two, this let's say 17 and this being 16, and let's say I'm one of your students, weekend warrior type, middle-aged, just play Saturday and Sundays, and I never break strings.
Right.
And basically, what am I doing? Oh, I'm doing this.
Go with that.
Okay.
Right? If you're not breaking strings, you can get more feel, and you're a weekend warrior, you're going to go out there and battle. You know, go with something that's easier on your arm. Or, you know, if you feel you're ready to make the move and you want to try a poly, do a 17, start with a hybrid, and then go from there.
Okay. So let's talk.
If you're not breaking string,
Yeah.
like, you know, you can go thinner
Right.
in a poly and try not to break your arm.
Right.
And drop tension.
Right.
Right? So that your tension would be looser to combat the stiffness of the string. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Now,
I could be wrong. So.
no, you're right. It's so here's the thing. When you're here, right, and you never break strings, how often should we string this?
That question comes up a lot. So I remember back in the day, at least the story was if you played once a week, string it once a year.
Okay.
You know, if you are, you know, you're going into winter, you're not going to be playing as much. Wait till spring, string it spring because you know you're going to be playing spring, summer, fall. Usually better weather months, at least here where we are. You're going to have more consistency playing. Start with a fresh set of string.
Okay, makes sense.
But
that's only with this though.
Right, because then somebody would come back and go, well, he played once a week and he played for 9 hours or 5 hours. And I'm like, well, okay. So, you know, it's more based on feel. If you're not a string breaker,
right?
If the string is getting brittle or if it's been a while, you know.
Exactly. Now, this actually holds better. So nylon-based strings hold better, especially in a multi-form, okay? If it's straight nylon, that isn't going to hold very long. I mean, we're talking like hours before it goes dead. And I'm talking a monofilament nylon, the $2 stuff that's out there. So poly doesn't last long either though, guys.
Lasts long tension-wise?
Tension-wise,
right.
yeah.
So we're not talking breakage.
I'm not talking about breakage.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm talking about maybe 20 hours to 30 hours of play. And I'm being kind of generous depending on how sensitive you are to tension loss. So, I mean, if you're thinking about, let's say best case scenario, 40 hours, and you're playing like an hour and a half, 2 hours a week, like how many weeks or months is that, right? I mean, just thinking about that, it's what, 3 to 4 months, you know, let's say 4 months, okay? And you should probably, and even if you're playing once, I would say if you're poly or you're a hybrid, I would strongly suggest maybe stringing it 3 to 4 times a year, even if you're playing once a week. Yeah, because this is just going to lose so fast. You guys know what I mean. You guys just don't want to string, but you know what I mean. So this will hold better. And I think you can get away with maybe 6 months to a year, once, twice a year. As soon as you introduce poly to it, though, you should double that, string it more, 2 to 4 times. Gut, I would say the same thing as poly, double it up if you use gut or you use a blend of the gut, because it doesn't hold that well either. It plays well. And when it's fresh and it softens up nicely as we go along, but it just kind of goes dead over that, let's say, 30-hour mark. Again, I'm being generous. I'm ultra sensitive too, but yeah, I would definitely consider stringing more than less.
And then for tension, let's say you have the same player, and you had a player that used, you know, monofilament, and he was stringing it at 58, and the range on the racket was 50 to 60, let's say, and then he was going to shift to a poly. Would you still string it at 58? Or would you drop it?
I would drop it.
Yes,
if we're going to do if we're doing 58 straight up there, I would go, 52,
right,
54. depending on what we choose here.
And the racket. Everybody's a little different for sure, but
Yeah.
because back in the day, if you remember, when polys first came out, we were still stringing them at the exact same tension as we were everything else, and hence everybody's arm started hurting.
Right.
Until we acclimated and dropped tension.
Yeah, they did in the fine print on the back, and some people did it in large print. They don't do it anymore though. But I remember in some of the packages said, use of this string recommends that you deduct 10% off.
Was it 10%? I remember there was a number in there. I don't remember the number. But
it was 10% off. So, or even some of them actually said 10 to 15% off. And that's just because of the stiffness of the string.
Right.
So 52 is kind of my go-to for hybrids and straight polys. The lower you can go on the polys, the better, is what I think. Like 48 is one of my favorite tensions, up to 52. Unless you're a big hitter. If you're a big hitter, then 55 is fine. I rarely do anything over that nowadays. Yeah.
I think I have one guy with a Prince oversize, and he's still at 62. But he's
it's an oversize.
It's an oversize, and he's using a soft gamma string. So.
Well, that's fine.
Right, but
totally fine.
I'm clicking a little bit to get up to 60. Come on, keep going.
Now let's talk about the latest trends in strings. The latest trends are pretty much coming only or mostly in polyesters. We all know ALU, we all know RPM, right? And whenever I talk about these strings, they're all like, yeah, it's on the firm side. Even that Torbite is on the firm side. And all the string manufacturers are seeing that and saying, oh, let's go softer. So I want to say the recent trend is going softer poly, as soft as we can get. And that's why Hybrid G is pretty is very popular. It actually is a top 10 string now. This Polytor Rev is a popular string now. What's going on with soft, Coach? Like, I know your kids are probably loving this stuff. Is it color or is it feel?
I hope it's not color. I hope it's feel, right? I mean, I have a racket, and there's a woman, and she loves pink. Goes with her outfit, she wants pink, right? So, but as you try to go, it's more based on the feel than whether the string is going to match your outfit.
Right. So all the kids and even the adults out there are loving when the ball impacts the string, that it doesn't give you that harsh, wiry, tough, elbow hurting pain. No, not pain. Vibration feel that like some of this string gives you. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's just because it's on the firmer side. But some people like that. I like that. I like that when the ball crashes into the string and you kind of feel it, like pa, and it's just, you hear that and feel that, resonating of the string vibrating. But they're trying to soften up the impact, soften up the vibration, and that's why we have softer polys out there now. And it's like the fastest growing segment of the string market. These two are great, and everybody's making softer. I mean, I'm kind of tired of looking at softer, but it's good for the market. It keeps people playing longer. It actually gets the kids out there and at a younger age trying the stuff, trying the poly, so that they can feel it sooner. I don't know if that's a good idea, but at least the companies are trying to soften it up so that they don't, the kids don't suffer from elbow pains.
Right. And then switching gears back to tension, so does tighter tension mean more power or more control?
A lot of you guys think that the tighter means more power.
I was in that camp. When I was younger, that's what I thought. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have an iPhone. It was kind of word of mouth.
Right.
And when you got your racket strung, it felt like you had more power. When really, you didn't. You had more control.
Right. I think the misnomer comes from when you get your racket strung, even at like a high tension at 60, like back in our day, because our strings were so dead,
right,
and we've had them in there for so long, a restring basically reset the energy of the strings. So when you had a dead string, it would just like a wet rag. You threw a ball in a wet rag, like that, right. And it had no energy to send back. When you tightened up the strings back, you had energy again. There was actually a little bit of spring. Therefore,
the ball flattened out.
Yeah.
You know, as we have talked, it's like a trampoline, right? So when your strings are tight, like the trampoline bed, you don't have the spring back.
Right.
And so the ball flattened out on your racket, and so you probably felt the ball a little bit longer on your strings. You're like, oh, wow, okay.
Right.
Where before, like you said, it was the wet towel effect. It was just blah.
Yeah.
And, right, nothing came back off your nylon or sin gut.
Yeah. So the higher the tension, the more control you do get. But here's the kicker, though. Just because your strings have been in there for, let's say, a year or two, and your tension is like 35, that actually means dead string, not powerful string.
Correct. Correct.
So we
went past that.
Yeah. So if I strung mine at 60, Coach Rob strings his at 50, Coach Rob is going to have more power because it's a new string job and it's a lower tension. He has more, energy. Like he has more absorption and shoot because it's a lower tension. Like, let's say a trampoline. Like everybody talks about a trampoline, like 60 pounds of tension on a trampoline versus 50, drop 100-pound weight on it. See which one gets sent higher.
Right.
So think of it like that. So just because your strings is 35 pounds from being in there for a year means that it's dead.
Right.
Not more powerful.
Correct.
Okay, so just understand that part of it, okay? We need fresh strings at a lower tension to give you the power. Okay?
Right. Right. Glad we covered that.
I know
we get that question a lot.
It's been bothering Rob for a little while now. Now, the most recent thing is taking two strings that are poly and blending them together. And the number one company that's doing that these days is my friends at Toraline, right? Where they're taking like a slightly firmer copoly and then a slightly softer copoly and putting it together for a customized feel.
Hey, Harry, so we've been going over string and stuff, but what about reels? What's the advantage? You hear, I got to get a reel. Is it going to save you? How many string jobs do you get out of a reel?
That's a good subject.
What are the pros and cons?
All right, so let's do this. Let's do math here. How many feet is that?
It says 656 feet or 200 meters.
Okay, so 656 feet. So
that's when it's new. This has been used. So
right. So we're talking brand new.
Brand new.
And then we're talking 40 feet per set. So what I like to do is take the set price, take the real price. Now, I usually divide 656 by 40 feet. I know people can get a little bit more out of it, and then see how many sets you get. So 656 divided by 40 is 656 divided by 40. 16.4. So on a great day, you will probably get 17 string jobs out of that.
Wow.
Given you don't screw up measuring.
Right.
So I'm just going to say this, from what I remember, is about $13. So 13 times 17 sets is $221.
Okay.
So if I got 17 sets, it'd be $221.
Not including the tax man, but yeah.
Yeah. Now that is $165, and I'm going to divide it by 17 string jobs. So it nets my string price down to about $9.70. So a reel will save you a little bit more money, given you don't screw it up, and you don't have ADD and decide you want to use something else.
You gotta know you want to use the 17 string jobs we said, that you want to use this 17 times.
Right, because so many times I've seen these kids, they're like, oh, it's my favorite string, I'm going to use that forever. And then a month later, they hand me another reel. I'm like, what happened to the other reel? I don't like it anymore. And it doesn't happen once, and it doesn't happen twice, and they wind up with reels. And I'm like, what are you going to do with all that? I don't know.
Right.
So make sure you know what you want.
For 17 times.
Exactly. I mean, I still kind of like the firm and the firm together. Now, what Toraline's doing is they're not talking about gauges, though. They're only doing one string at the one gauge. You know, like if wasabi is going to only be made, and it's only going to be made in 1, 2, 3, because they feel like that string is going to only play the best in a 1.23 millimeter. I like the firmer strings like the Enzo Pro and the Super Toro put together. I still like firm and firm. Coach Rob, you're still an NXT guy, right?
Excuse my reach. This is the NXT Power, but yes,
okay.
NXT Comfort, Power, yeah.
Okay, so you're still multi-soft.
Longevity of arm.
Yep.
Hours of use in
Right.
a day.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've tried poly before. You've tried blends. You've tried gut.
Yep.
What is it about like NXT or multis that
The NXT sort of played a little bit like the gut. You know, it kind of has the, where it will unravel a little bit, so it's a little bit softer. My arm appreciates a little bit softer after hitting so many balls per day. So I just kind of go with that when.
the go-to?
That's kind of the go-to.
Okay.
And it's in the right price range.
Anything else we need to cover here?
I think we got most of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure some viewer will let us know what we forgot.
Yep. I like firmer strings, as most of you know, so Confidential is my go-to string. I like just the firmer feel. I like that hard impact. I like that it's telling me. I like what it's telling me and how it's telling it to me. Whereas the soft stuff is like, I can't feel it. I like the vibration. I don't think you get much vibration in your NXT, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't think you get a lot of vibration if you hit it on the sweet spot.
This is true. So I think that's part of why I like the harshness is when I'm off, I know. It actually tells me that hey, you're off, And then when I hit it right, it's like it gives me a nice kind of knife through butter.
Okay.
Kind of a sound and feel.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was you kept your head down or you looked up, but
Yeah. But other than that, because if you're not there to just remind me, at least the ball and the string will tell me. All right.
Yep.
All right, Coach Rob, thank you for bringing up the subject.
Sure.
And hopefully we went over all the questions that anybody might have about tennis string. Okay? Guys, thank you for watching Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis.